This week's question is, and you don't have to be some kind of crazy collector to answer this, who is your favorite home video label? Who do you think most consistently puts out the best stuff, the good stuff? That's this week's question. Answer down below in the comments. Hello again, I'm Adam Caesar, and this is Project Black T-shirt. Today we're going to talk about 5 great horror movies that were released by Arrow Video. Arrow Video, if you don't know them, for years has been a British Blu Ray and DVD company that puts out these incredible and cool collectible editions of horror films, not just British horror films, but all kinds of horror films, whatever they can license, as long as it's good. But not just horror, they also do some incredible re-releases of Japanese action and martial arts and revenge pictures. But we're not really going to be talking about those today, even though I love the female prisoner scorpion set. Today we're just going to be focusing on their horror output. Now, I've loved these guys since they were only putting out Region 2, Region B, British only releases, and those were great, but they were super expensive to import. They most of the times required a region-free Blu-ray player, but more recently, over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I'm not sure how long they've been going, but they have been doing American releases. As I talked about in my other top 5 collection video, where I talked about Vinegar Syndrome, the disclaimer is I don't own everything that they've put out. So if I don't talk about your favorite release, it may not be because I don't like it, it may be because I don't really have it, or taste is subjective, and this is a super subjective, just fun list. So here are my top 5 movies put out by Arrow Video, and stay tuned, because at the end of the video, as we always do, I'm going to give you a book recommendation, because you shouldn't just be watching movies, you shouldn't just be watching your horror, you should be reading it as well. I'm not your dad. You know what? Read and watch whatever you want. All right, on to the list. The first movie we're going to talk about is one of the first movies that they released in the U.S. It's Spine Number 2, so it's the second movie they released in the U.S. It is Michael Armstrong's Mark of the Devil. I believe a German-British co-production. It has Udo Kier in it. It is about witch hunts and hypocrisy, and it's kind of this lavishly produced but very gory, very extreme for the time, kind of similar to The Conqueror Worm, the Vincent Price film, The Witchfinder General. If you like those types of films, if you like the folk horror that doesn't really have a supernatural element, you will love Mark of the Devil if you haven't seen it. This Blu-ray release had some really, really great features, gave me a whole new appreciation for a movie that I kind of already loved before this edition came out. Most famously, this film in the US came with a barf bag, like an airplane barf bag that was branded Mark of the Devil, and I have one around here somewhere. I guess it's not in my knickknacks anymore that I put behind me, but I do have an original Mark of the Devil barf bag somewhere. The next movie was released in a set that kind of recently came out. I'm not going to recommend the whole set, but I think they're releasing these separately, so you can get them separately. I'm going to say George Romero's, before he did Dawn of the Dead, but after he did Night, because the set's called Between Night and Dawn, he made a little movie called The Crazies, which is, for my money, my favorite Romero film that is not a zombie movie, not of the Dead film. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Martin, I love Creepshow, but there's something about The Crazies and the fact that it is one of his last not big films, that it's got this kind of scrappiness to it, that it's got this sheer ambition. It is a huge movie on a small indie movie's kind of price tag, but I think it does amazing things. There was a remake of this that came out a little while ago. It's one of the better horror remakes. It was the 2000s remake. A lot of people, when I talk to them, talk to people at like cons, or talk about movies just with my friends, I'll hear people say, well, the original wasn't that great to begin with, so I prefer the remake of The Crazies. Look, I like the remake too. It's totally cool. It's kind of an action horror movie. But if you're calling The Crazies not that good, you haven't watched The Crazies in a while, because it's really great. It's got all this Vietnam stuff on its mind. It's got government conspiracies. It's got government kind of bumbling and inaction and inability to communicate with people in a articulate way. It is one of Romero's most overtly political films, and he is an overtly political filmmaker, but it's not preachy or cloying. It's just really interesting and really chilling in parts, and really funny in parts too. It's kind of everything, and I love The Crazies. So Arrow's release of it is incredible. It's a very colorful film, and their kind of remastering of it looks amazing. The third movie we're going to talk about is a little movie called Chud. Chud is a movie that I think it was Anchor Bay that first put it out when they it's kind of one of those like first DVDs, or like when Best Buy near me growing up used to, and Tower Records and stuff used to carry DVDs. I feel like it was one of like the first DVDs I got. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see this, crazy cult movie. And then when I watched it as a young teenager, I didn't love it. For whatever reason, maybe it didn't have enough monsters, maybe it didn't have enough kind of like crazy exploitative elements. It didn't click with me when I was a kid. Upon rewatching it, just very recently rewatching it on Arrow's re-release of it, I know that I was an untrustworthy source as a child because, kids are dumb. Chud is excellent. It is an excellent, no frills, no tongue-in-cheek monster movie. Daniel Stern, John Hurd, it's kind of like got an A-list cast. It's great, and the best part about it is how much New York you see, how much 80s New York you see in this film. It looks like $1 billion. It's like an expensive-looking movie because they do a lot of on-location shooting. It's just really, really good, and maybe I'm getting nostalgic in my older age, but it makes me think of New York because I'm originally from New York, and it's just a good monster movie, just really solid, and with a great ending. Yeah, if you haven't seen Chud, or if you haven't seen Chud in a while, this is the one to get. The commentary on here is great, hysterical. They got kind of everyone involved in this release, and they even went to the places that it was shot, present day, and a lot of these streets in downtown New York downtown Manhattan kind of look the same. It's very interesting. The fourth release we're going to talk about, and I say release, not movie, because I am gonna recommend all three of these films. This is the American Horror Project Volume 1. It includes Malatesla's Carnival of Blood, The Witch Who Came from the Sea, and The Premonition. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, this is one of the first discs that I reviewed, some of the first movies that I reviewed on the channel. But back then, I didn't know how to light. My hair was too long. I mumbled. So I'm going to talk about it again. I'll link to it in the description. You can watch the whole long-form thing if you really want to know about each one of these movies. But they're regional horror films, and they're kind of underseen films presented in a lavish way, and with essays and supplemental features that kind of tie them together, and talk about like the history of people outside of Hollywood making their own films. Really, really interesting stuff. Even if you don't love every movie in this set, you will appreciate every movie in this set. I almost guarantee it. Very, very cool. I really hope they get on the ball and release Volume 2, because this is Volume 1. Where's Volume 2, guys? I hope they get going on that, because this was a great idea, and it was something that that everyone should kind of vote with your dollars and support, because it's something really interesting and cool they were onto here. I hope they do another one. The final release is excessive. Even by my insane standards, this thing has 14 feature films in it. It is the Herschell Gordon Lewis Feast, full of bloody goodness. And believe it or not, this giant faux cereal box looking release, this is not the deluxe version. This is just the regular off-the-shelf version. This isn't the limited edition one, or I guess maybe it is limited edition, but not as limited as the other crazy, ridiculously expensive one that they put out. But you get all the same films in this one, and they're split between these two kind of yearbook-looking things. This is, not gonna lie, this isn't for everyone. If you do not know or like the films of Herschell Gordon Lewis, you should definitely watch one before you check this out, because this is a little bit of a time and money investment. But God, if you enjoy the Godfather of Gore, you are gonna love this. It's every major film he's done outside of the kind of lost films in the lost years, presented in a really loving way. Some of the movies look rough because they only have like prints of them, not negatives, and they have to put them together. But they've never looked as good as they look on this release. It has a ton of features, puts all this stuff kind of in context. They have modern filmmakers talking about the films and the influence that Herschell Gordon Lewis, who in in the 60s and 70s was, you know, one of the pioneers of the gore film. But you don't only get the gore films in there. You get stuff like This Stuff Will Kill You, which is kind of maybe a comedy, not really a horror picture, not really a, it's more Southsploitation than anything else. You get Scum of the Earth, which is a roughie, a black and white roughie. But then, of course, you get classics like Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs, The Gore Girls, and The Gruesome Twosome, a movie that, if it were released today, would cause a national uproar because it is just so wrong-headed and weird and strange. But still so charming because Herschell Gordon Lewis was a businessman, first and foremost, and these films exhibit that, even though there's this weird kind of art to them as he goes along. Really, really great. The Herschell Gordon Lewis Feast, I don't even know if it's still around, but as with every movie and release I talked about in this video, I'll put links down in the description to where you can get them. Yeah, so that's been our journey through the catalog of Arrow Video releases. Tell me what some of your favorite releases are, and before you click away, before we go anywhere, we got to talk about this week's book recommendation. This week I have a really, really good one for you, and full disclosure, it's one that I'm helping to put out along with Black T-Shirt Books. It's my friend Matt Serafini, the quasi follow-up to his werewolf book Feral. It's called Devil's Row. A period piece. It is kind of a prequel to Feral because it involves one of the main characters from Feral, or one of the main antagonists from Feral, and where she comes from. But it is a she-wolf who is roughed up, left for dead by this group of hunters, and this she-wolf, she takes her bloody revenge. A revenge story. It is kind of a Mark of the Devil-esque period piece. It's if you like Feral, and even if you haven't read Feral, because you can read them separately, they don't depend on one another. One of Matt Serafini's best books, and I highly recommend you check it out. If you like this video, please hit like. If you really like this video, please watch some of the other ones that I've put out and consider subscribing. It really helps me out. I've had some people reach out to me and ask, Adam, how do I support the channel? How do I support you? That's very nice of you, but just by watching the videos and sharing them with your friends and getting people to watch, that's really all the help you need to do. If you are feeling extra spicy and you want to help support me directly, I don't have a Patreon, I don't have any of that stuff. What I ask you to do is read my books. I've written several novels. I've written a bunch of short stories. They've all been anthologized. I've even written a comic book or two. Go to my website, find the one that speaks to you, read it. Hey, if you like it, if you really like it, please review it, tell your friends about it. That's how you support me. Either that or you buy one of these beautiful shirts I'm modeling. That's it. So thank you so much to everyone who's doing that. Thank you so much to everyone who's done that. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched or subscribed. I really, really appreciate it, and you guys have really, really shown me a lot of love, and we built a little community here, and I'm very happy. All right, that's enough schmaltzy talk. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.